Welcome back to the show. Back to tell you about a great photography exhibit and subject matter that you're probably not used to seeing, but very intriguing. We're joined by photographer Tony Foose. Tony, welcome to the show.
Thank
Great
you.
to have you here.
Thanks for being here.
And your exhibit's called Live Through This, photographs by Tony Foose. Live Through This, explain the title of the exhibit, first of all.
Well, I used to call it my project, but that didn't seem to suit it.
Right.
So I had to come up with a title. I'm a big Courtney Love fan. She released an album called Live Through This. But also what the subject matter was me and Stephanie McDonald going through a series of craziness, a whole bunch of craziness that she could have lived through or not lived through, but she did live through it.
Right, and Stephanie McDonald is the subject of many of your photos.
That's right.
Explain, who is she? How'd you meet her?
Well, I was photographing a lot of addicts on the corner of Carleton and Murray. I spent 4 years doing that, and I wasn't trying to save them or change them or judge them. I was down there collaborating with them to produce a series of portraits. Right. And the last year, I spent 4 years there. The last year I was there, I met Stephanie, and there was something kind of amazing about her. I never really met anyone like her, and one day I photographed her 3 or 4 times over the course of maybe 6 weeks, and one day I just blurted out the words, "Is there something I can do to help you?" And she asked me to help her get into rehab, and then that began this trip that was kind of unbelievable.
Tony, going back even before that, why did you choose addicts as as a subject matter?
Well, desperation, really. I wanted to photograph strangers at dusk. I wanted to set them up in scenarios and photograph that. Okay. I had tried 3 or 4 different locations in Ottawa, and none of them really worked, and then out of desperation I went to the corner of Cumberland and Murray, and through another quirky chain of events, my life is like a series of quirky chains of events, I got next to and got to know a bunch of the addicts that hang down there, and they ended up liking the idea that I was a kind of a conduit to the outside world for them, because I was collaborating with them rather than typically when the addicts are represented in the media. They're represented from a certain angle using a certain cliches, but I wanted to sort of photograph the people and not the drugs.
How would you describe Stephanie?
Wow, she's really sharp, she's honest, she's about the laziest person I've met in my life.
Right.
But the thing that really attracted me to her was that she was brave enough to get in touch with her emotions and to show them to me and to allow me to photograph them. And as a photographer, when you meet people like that, it's kind of an exceptional event.
See, that's interesting, because most artists, they want to say something through their work. And I guess, is it you and Stephanie saying something together through your work?
I don't really say, I never frame my work that I'm saying something. What I like to do is I like to go out into the world, I like to have experiences, and then the camera's kind of like a key or a tool to allow those experiences to happen. Right. And for me, the photographs are really just souvenirs of that experience. So what people take away from the work is entirely up to them. And when I first started showing User, which was my portraits of addicts, the New York Times ran a thing on it, and we started getting, my gallery and myself started getting hate mail from around the world. Really? People thought I was exploiting them or glamorizing them or making money off them or something like that. So what I realized is that you can do this work, and once you send it out into the wide world, people will make of it what they will, and there's really nothing you can do to control that.
Well, and you're an artist. I mean, and that's what art is.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
To make their own decision on how they feel about it. We have some of the photos, as I understand it. If we could roll some of the photos up on the screen there, and maybe you can just describe some of the scenes.
Well, that's Stephanie. That's the very first day we started the project, which was November 3rd, 2010. And that's about 30 seconds after she injected some heroin. That's Stephanie in my studio. Okay. We were collaborating on this, so she knew what I was doing. She was seeing the pictures as they were coming out. Right. And I was making prints, and she was doing a lot of writing, and we were shooting video of each other and stuff like that. That's Stephanie in the observation room at the hospital. I had helped her get her, she didn't have any paper, so I helped her get her birth certificate, and once she got her birth certificate, she got an OHIP card. And I took her to the Royal Ottawa Hospital, and she had an initial interview, and then 6 weeks later she had a second interview, and she got accepted into their rehab program. But she was going to begin in 10 days, but I think it was 5 days before she was going to enter the program, she phoned me up and said it felt like her brain was exploding. And I took her to the hospital, to emergency, and they found an abscess in her brain, and they shifted her right to neurology, and she was in a queue for brain surgery, and 3 days later they operated on her brain.
So where is she at now?
She's in Pictou County, Nova Scotia now. That was, I guess she's been there almost, almost coming up, a year and a half, 2 years, something like that.
When you started this series with her, did you want to help her? Was there something inside you that wanted to change the course of her life?
Yes and no. I mean, I believe that no one does anything for purely altruistic reasons. Stephanie, actually, we had lots of conversations, Stephanie and I, about that. Why am I doing this? Why is she doing it? And I told her that I was doing it to help her, but I was also doing it to help me, and I was doing it because I liked the experience, and it made me feel really alive. And, you know, so it was to help her, yes. It was to do something for me, yes. And it was probably for 10 or 12 other reasons. I think that life's a little more complicated than just to boil it down to, I'm doing this for you.
Right. This exhibition's running until March the 17th.
That's right.
Whereabouts can people go and see it?
It's at the Carleton University Art Gallery, which is in the St. Patrick Building at Carleton University. You got to go through some tunnels to get there, but I think it's probably worth the burrowing.
Absolutely. It's fascinating photos.
Fascinating. You're so honest as well, which I appreciate too.
Well, that helps.
It's refreshing.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Tony. Really appreciate it. And good luck to Stephanie, as we understand.
Yes.
She's having a difficult time.
It's a hard road to hoe.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Listen, don't go away. We are back.